Hey guys, welcome back to Leading Edge Cricket. Today we are going to break down the first test match between England and New Zealand, the run chase that wasn't really happening, and a couple of moments in life, in time, in English cricket that is absolutely dividing opinion. I'm Rob, this is Rich. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey Rob, how's it going? Not much to talk about really in this test match, is there?
Absolutely nothing that is breaking Twitter is going on at the moment. Like my feed
Good Lord.
is unbearable to watch. It's like watching politics going off in different directions, mate. It's difficult to listen to, difficult to read.
We've dropped a P word, and I think we've got an alphabet of words we don't want to say on this podcast, haven't we? P word, politics, that's one of them. But we do get stuck in. There's loads to talk about, Rob. It's ridiculous. It was a really good test match, a really solid test match. We lost a day, didn't we, for the rain? You're going to lose a day for the rain at the minute. It's gorgeous weather generally at the minute, but we have rain, obviously. I don't know where to start with this one, Rob. I think we just probably have to just get straight into the game, don't we? And just as we go, we'll then pick up points because there is so much to talk about. We will get to it all of it, and that's what I mean by all. But yeah, let's get into the test match. Unless you've got anything you just want to get off your chest initially.
Get off my chest. And when we say all, we're talking Overton, we're talking Robinson, we're talking batting approaches, and we're talking some fine standout career moments in 4 days of actual active cricket is a phenomenal amount has gone on.
Absolutely. And just before we go into get us up to date where we're, it's quite incredible that after losing a day of cricket, it looked like the game would meander to a draw. But New Zealand were really, really aggressive in their intent to try and force a result. I'm sure we'll both have lots to say about England's approach, maybe differing views as well on that. But it was set up for a great fifth day. Public haven't been into test match grounds or pretty much any grounds, have they? They could have seen something special on the fifth day. But in the end, it did end in a draw, Rob, as we all know. But let's get back to the start. New Zealand batting for 378. 200 of those were scored by a certain Devon Conway, South African-born, New Zealand naturalised, if that's the correct term, Devon Conway. You fire off first on this one. Superlative me away.
Oh, incredible. It's going to be one of the first eyes that gets used. His approach to the game was, I think, the thing that took everyone a little bit back. At no point against a new ball against Anderson and Broad, and it was hooping a little bit, and a 90-mile-an-hour Mark Ward, other than a couple of short balls, did he ever look like he was not made to set foot on the test match arena?
Yeah.
This was his moment. 20 years of graft, 6 years in New Zealand playing domestic cricket, however many it is, it was meant for this moment. And you saw it when he got to his 100, just took off his lid. I've done this before. I've scored 20, 30, 40 first-class hundreds. This is what I do. This is the player I am.
Yeah. And it just his intent as well was fantastic, wasn't it? He came into the game and it was a steady start. He looked a little bit nervous. I don't think he actually got on strike from about the third or fourth over.
Yeah.
Latham was carving the strike a little bit, wasn't he? But he just took his time, built an innings, but then he started going up through the gears and he just looked better and better and better as he went through that innings over the first day, obviously batted through and into the second day as well. 200 before he was run out. I think, was he last man out?
Last man out.
Yes, he was last man out. So he nearly carried his bat for the whole innings. It is just a sensational innings. It was the fifth highest test debut score ever. Am I right in saying? It's. I think the guy at the top, number one, was Tip. Someone. His first name was Tip.
Tip.
That's how long ago that record has stood. But yeah, Devon Conway, absolutely sensational. Rightly man of the match. Didn't quite get going in the second innings, but we'll get to that shortly. But first innings as well, Rob. I mean, nobody else really contributed. So England, if they could have got into Devon Conway, and just before we say could have got into Devon Conway, there was nothing really that was suggesting this is how you're going to get this guy out. He wasn't fiddling outside off stump. He didn't look vulnerable to a short ball. He didn't look weak off his legs. He wasn't toppling his head over. He wasn't chasing the ball down the track every 2 minutes. He just looked solid. So, England are going to be...
Yeah, he looked like a guy this is how I play cricket. I know which my scoring shots, and he was brilliant. Anything straight, mate. He was tucking it away. There was always that opportunity to get off strike. Plays with quite a close face at time to get it inside and get the runs away. And Anything too far outside off stump on a length, he's like, well, I'm not going to go after that. What's the point?
Yeah, absolutely. 578 minutes, 347 balls on his debut, and his 22 fours and 1 6 at just about a 60 strike rate as well. Excellent, excellent for New Zealand. He's going to be locked in there. A bit of a Jonathan Trott, really, isn't it? I suppose coming into the test arena a little bit later than expected, but knows his game inside out, like you said, and he's just going to be a mainstay there. And it's frustrating, isn't it, for other guys? Is it Tom Blundell scored 100 on his test debut as well?
Yep.
He's not going to get back in the team for a while.
No,
and I'm sure there are other options. Yeah, it will be interesting if another opener spot does open up, though. Obviously, BJ Watling will be retiring at the end of this summer, this English test summer when New Zealand are here. So it just does beg the question whether Tom Latham might take the glove. So it might open up an opener spot. But then you've got Rashid Ravinder anyway. So anyway, that's down the road. But yeah, Conway's 200, excellent. Henry Nicholls, 61. Starts really from Latham, Williamson and Taylor. And then it was started becoming a bit of a phone number after Watling, didn't it? England certainly rattled through the tail.
Yeah, bowled well. You've got to say during those moments, Kane Williamson was one of the first balls. Was it after lunch that he went, tried to play as usual, tap into the ground, really soft hands. You see him, the commentators talking about how he twirls the bat, keeps his hands relaxed on the ball. Well, little too relaxed, ball goes flying into the stumps. And Ross Taylor's there's a lot of call in New Zealand that this is Ross Taylor's last hurrah. Let him retire on his own before he's forced out of the team. His production in Test match cricket is completely plummeted. Stuart Broad got him out 10, 11 times in his career so far. And Ollie Robinson getting Ross Taylor LBW. Well, it could have been any one of 3 or 4 bowlers getting Ross Taylor LBW because that's how Ross Taylor gets out. And as his production's got worse, bowling straight is a really good approach to take.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Taylor, we'll get onto it in a moment, but, you know, he showed his skills still in the second innings where they wanted to kick on, wanted to score runs quickly, and he certainly did do that. So he still has that value. He's still got that quality, but absolutely everyone has the day. And at some point, New Zealand will want to turn the page. Obviously, like I just spoke about Watling moving on, Taylor move on perhaps, Conway coming in, freshening things up, Jameson coming in, freshening things up. There'll be an opportunity, I'm sure, and they'll want to start blooding one or two of these younger players. They just about blew the tail away, Rob, but it was Neil Wagner at the end. 338 when the ninth wicket went, and they allowed another 40 runs, 25 not out for Wagner. I mean, he did a great job, obviously, hanging around for Conway to make sure he got up to his double 100 and you know, in the hope that he would go on and keep scoring runs. But that's a pretty good bowling performance from England, but that's a disappointing end when you're suddenly letting another 40 runs to the final wicket. That can change a game. And as we'll come on to on the final day, if they were chasing maybe 30 or 40 less runs, maybe there might have been a different outcome to this game. So it does all impact the end result, doesn't it? Turn the page to the bowling card, Rob. We have to talk about Ollie Robinson, but to begin with, we're going to talk about his performance. We're going to keep the two things separate. Ollie Robinson, the cricketer who made his Test match debut in this game and who performed very, very well. And then a little bit later on, we're going to talk about Ollie Robinson and his tweets, etc., and the outcome of that. But let's just keep things separately for now. 4 for 75 off 28 overs. Did have a dropped catch off Stuart Broad. He could have had a 5 for, could have got his name up on the Lord's Honours board very, very early into his career. So, and a couple of wickets for Jimmy Anderson and 3 wickets for Mark Wood. Just before I let you jump in on this, I thought Mark Wood was going to have another one of those games, which I used to criticise him for, was he looked good, great character, love to have a guy like that in the dressing room, but he doesn't take wickets. But he did pop up with 3 in the end for 81 off 27 overs, so pretty good going. Yeah, talk to me about that a little bit, Rob. And also the lack of spinner. Jack Leach was obviously not picked in this team. It was Joe Root as the primary spinner. Do you think that had any impact really in this game?
It's hard to tell because I don't think we really saw enough from New Zealand spinner Mitch Santner, who's not a top turner of the ball. He's not the best spinner in the country. So it would have been interesting seeing Jack Leach, who is the best spinner in the country, going at it and seeing what difference that would have made. Even if it was Joe Root. Joe Root bowled 12.4 overs in this innings, only going at 3 runs and over, but that's a non-attacking 3 runs per over. That is purely just letting the game slide. And you look at Henry Nicholls, who scored 61 off 180 balls. That is the perfect sphere for him to find himself in and just keep going. But overall, I thought the England bowling attack was pretty good. I thought Stuart Broad was unlucky at times. He bowled Stuart Broad deliveries, and sometimes they get wickets, sometimes they're too good for batsmen. He bowled balls that were too good for batsmen. And Ollie Robinson, came in. One of the first things you do when you get a new bowler in Test cricket is you go, what's the speed gun saying? And as soon as you saw him around 84 mile an hour, you went, that's enough if he does something with it. And he does something with it both ways off the seam. And this Test match was, again, one of the great things to come out of it is statistics. And it was the second most that the ball has swung since stats began in 2006.
Yeah.
And the number one was Anderson and side bottom at Trent Bridge.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
What's interesting about that is the ball was swinging so much, but India still went and won the Test match. It didn't mean England won. So it's seam and swing. That is the thing that really does mean that teams get cleaned up. And Ollie Robinson had seam movement for days. He said he built himself on Glenn McGrath or idolizes Glenn McGrath.
Sensible.
You can see that. You can see that sort of bowler.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone that idolized Glenn McGrath as a young man is pretty good going in my book, because that's pretty much what I did, to be honest with you. I remember doing a coaching course, introducing everybody, before we started, and everyone's talking about their heroes, Ian Botham or other England bowlers at the time. I was the only guy that said a non-Englishman, Glenn McGrath. So it didn't go down very well. But yeah, absolutely right. Stuart Broad did what Stuart Broad has been doing for Notts. He's looked fantastic, but he hasn't necessarily got the wickets he deserves. And this is not a case of Mark Wood. He doesn't take enough wickets. This is Stuart Broad. We know he takes wickets, but at the moment, he's just not quite getting that rub. He's not quite getting the nick. He's not quite getting the LB, the decisions. But he's bowling really well. It's great to see Jimmy Anderson back in. He's not played a lot of county cricket this summer, for those of you not following the county game. But he's played bits and bobs. He had a bit of an injury, didn't he, earlier on in the summer. But it's great to see him in as well. And Ollie Robinson was exceptional in that first innings, really was. Like you said, it's seam and swing. And when we're talking about swing as well, we don't want early swing. And that's another thing when we talk about, if you get really pronounced swing movement early out of the hand, it's easy to line it up, get across your stumps and play it, or whichever way you want to go. So it is that late swing as well. So we don't need a big amount of swing. We just need enough, especially at this level. You're not going to want someone swinging the ball inches. You just want it to swing a centimetre or so, a few mil.
Get the edge.
Exactly.
What did you make of Bracey behind the stumps? Not a natural number one keeper in first class cricket for many years. Sky made multiple comments about him being the third or fourth least experienced keeper for England. What did you make about his glove?
Nothing. I think the best compliment I can give him is nothing really jumped out. I don't think he did anything behind there that made me go, But at the same time, he didn't do anything that particularly wowed. He did a relatively steady job. It must be difficult at Lords with that slope. I mean, we've played on club grounds where you've got slopes all over the place, divots, dips, whatever you want, rabbit holes, everything. But he looked neat and tidy enough. Quite clean glove work. Didn't really see it. I can't think of what I thought of him when he was standing up. So again, it probably meant that he did okay.
Yeah, I think that might be the test. That might be the test, playing on the ground with a bit of a spinner and a first top quality spinner in keeping to him.
Yes.
That is almost the judge of a wicket keeper that is
100%
smart, keeps well, goes under the radar, looks fast, looks clean, no buys, no sloppy work. That's where you really want to see if he's the man to do it.
Yeah, saying that, you say no buys. I saw one in the New Zealand news. BJ Watling got 4 against his name, and one it pretty much clipped the cut strip. And it was buys. These umpires are brutal for wicket keepers. Forget it. Just take the gloves off and stand at slip. It's much easier. Bracey looked okay, I think. I think the batting, it's the same old thing, isn't it? It's confidence. I think it was probably good for him to have that first innings in the field to get his boots on and get his gloves on and have a go. Obviously, it didn't pay off in the second innings, which we'll get onto in a moment. But it will be interesting. It will be a test of character for him when he's, I think, at Edgbaston. I think it'll probably be a little bit more demanding of him. But he's not going to be the first choice keeper. We've got Josh Butler, who will be coming straight back in the team. Johnny Best, who's there or thereabouts. Ben Folkes was sat there looking like something out of This Is Chelsea or whatever you call it. Up in the stand. So I think my opinion slightly changed of him when I saw him up there looking a bit too flash. It's like, you thought you had a torn hamstring. You got your foot up on the bar, mate. Relax. But Bracey was an interesting one. I'm not 100% convinced yet, but I don't think England wanted him in the team as a keeper, in all honesty. I think there was a chance he could have batted at 3.
Yes.
And with obviously Folkes keeping. So maybe that tells us what England think of Bracey more than just as a keeper. So on to the England innings, Rob. Rory Burns is somebody that has used the summer before this test match to his absolute advantage. He's on a run of half centuries, 1 century included. I think this is probably his 7th or 8th half century in a row. Obviously, he got 100, and he ended up being a pretty good 100 as well, 132. Yeah. He was inspired by Devon Conway, and he almost carried his bat as well, being last man out. Jimmy A, number 11, just like New Zealand being the not out man. We have to talk about Rory Burns in a moment, and also we have to talk about him as a comparison to Dom Sibley. But just while we get there, the only other real contributions to this England lineup was Joe Root, 42, and Ollie Robinson, 42, who, again, 4 wickets and 42. The man does not want his name up on the boards at Lords. he was so close on 2 sides of this game, but it just didn't come enough, did it? So, Burns and Sibley first, or Burns, however you want to slice it up, Rob, but Burns... exceptional, and I think that's the conversation over. Burns will open for the rest of this summer. I'm absolutely certain now.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Interesting thing about Burns is he's always that. The century against Australia was the moment for me. Doing it against that pace attack in the Ashes at home, I went, this guy can play Test cricket. He's good enough. He's got a way to runs in county cricket. He's done it against this attack. I think he was a little bit harshly treated in India, but you may look back at it as being the best thing that ever happened to him. It showed that he was fallible. He had other things going in his life. He's got a young baby, and it took himself out of it, and then he was able to work his way back towards it. And anyone that's dropped, you're watching someone who's gone about his business the best possible way. Captain of his county, leading them well. I listened to him speak at their AGM dinner, which was on YouTube, came across really well. Scoring runs heavily, improved his game, and you could see it. It was probably the most confident I'd seen him and secure I'd seen him against fast bowlers in Test cricket. He just, to me, I know he got dropped, but he didn't look in trouble a great deal. And out of the last 10 years, mate, in terms of England showing faith in openers, Burns has played the second most amount of Test matches as an opener in the last 10 years for England. 24 Test matches. 1,448 runs. Let that sink in.
Decent. And I assume Cook is the most.
Cook's number one.
Yeah.
And to show how much faith they're showing in this opening pair, Sibley has now played 19 Test matches. That's third most in the last 10 years. That's Jennings gone, Hale, Stoneman, Compton, Robson, Carberry, Lythe, Denley, Hamid, Jack Leach, Ben Duckett, Moeen Ali, Jonathan Trott, Jason Roy. All of them have been and gone and played less Test matches than these two.
And it's worth noting, as you've just mentioned all those, the best Test average for one of those openers is
Jack Leach.
Night Watchman Supreme. Absolutely. There's your solution. Get him up there. So Burns versus Sibley for me. Burns obviously scored runs. It was really interesting to see them breaking down. This is the ugliest batting partnership we've ever seen in English cricket, probably in world cricket. But that's not to take away their effectiveness. Obviously, both of them have scored a ridiculous amount of runs at county crickets over an extended period of time. So they both warranted their place. Rory Burns, just got to quickly say, I loved his bow. I don't know if the hair in the bow maybe starting to make sense. Maybe he's like some samurai or something. He did a bow when he got his 100. I was a big fan of that. So he's folks, you know, in my little stock market in my head, folks has gone down a little bit for like looking like something, oh, this is Essex or anyways Essex. But Rory Burns has gone up for the way he batted and also the nice bow, the samurai bow. He is in order as a batsman. He is moving around. He's got his head looking all over the place. But when that ball is delivered, he is in a perfect position. An absolutely perfect position to play the ball. Dominic Sibley looks horrific, and he is not in a good position when the ball is being delivered at all. We'll come on to his second innings blockathon in a minute, but he was out for Duck. Big pressure was on him at that point. So what he did in the second innings, we have to give him credit for.
Yep.
A lot of cojones showed from Sibley, but Rory Burns was exceptional. He accelerated right at the end. He moved England towards a position where we could have easily been out of the game in this first innings with what happened in the middle order. But yeah, he solidified his spot and he looked exceptional. More power to him. Zach Crawley, Dan Lawrence, James Bracey, no real contribution from them. 4 ducks in the innings as well. Mark Wood added to Bracey, Lawrence and Sibley. That's not good enough. And some of the shots weren't good enough either.
It reeked of naivety. Clever bowling from Tim Southee, using his noggin, working batsmen out. But anyone that's played 10, 15 test matches, they're just leaving that ball. And again, CricViz, more power to them. One of these dismissals, I think it was the Lawrence one that was the widest. I might be wrong. It was the 8th widest delivery since 2006 that's been out in Test cricket. So they were ridiculously wide. And the hands on Lawrence's, his bat face was facing down the ground when he hit it. So he's never going to get it. And Zach Crawley, we'll get onto him in his second innings in a minute. But the foot movement was absolutely obscene in the first innings and got worse into the second innings.
What frustrates as well for me is Zach Crawley and Dan Lawrence have played a lot of county cricket so far, and they've both done pretty well. You know, they haven't ripped it up. Dan Lawrence has probably had one signature inning so far this summer where he went wild. Zach Crawley's had a steady start. But both of them, I mean, this order, again, we'll talk about it. Well, probably won't talk about it later in this one, but you have Stokes coming back at 5. You have Butler coming back as a keeper, let's say at 7. There is only one spot for probably Lawrence. There could even be only one spot for Lawrence and Crawley, depending on how you shake up that order. We'll have to see. I mean, there's a certain Dawid Malan decided to score 200 runs in the last innings as well for Yorkshire. So there's some pressure on these young fellas. One thing that I wanted to see England be a bit more positive about in the second innings, because it might have played into their confidences and into their games, like the Popes, Lawrence of this world, and it could have really got them re-established by having a go. But obviously the faith wasn't quite there by Captain Root, who got himself a 42, but got out. He was a second leading scorer with Ollie Robinson. Not much more to talk about, I don't think, in that innings, Rob. Disappointment is the overwhelming feeling for some of those young fellas that we're all excited about. James Bracey, obviously a duck on debut. Tim Southee, if I could, if you wanted to build a prototypical English bowler who isn't English, Tim Southee is a man. I've loved this guy for years. He is what I want out of a bowler. 6 for 43, going at 1.7, 25 overs in the innings. Simply exceptional. Carl Jameson 3 wickets and Neil Wagner picked up the other one. Colin de Grandhomme did his usual, I'm not giving anything away.
I love it.
Apart from telling the world what he really is like with that party going on behind his head.
I thought it was a superb performance. Again, Twitter absolutely lighting up about Southee, going, he's the most underrated bowler in Test cricket. He's not underrated if you live in New Zealand. No, we know how good he is.
Not in my household.
You probably don't see him as much as some other people. That's all it is.
Love him.
A wonderful performance, mate. Swinging the ball both ways, accuracy, consistent, always challenging the batsman during tricky conditions. And his wicket of Bracey is something I will go and watch back for years. James Bracey will never want to see it again. But the noise of the stunt just going at the ground and then cartwheeling there's nothing better in cricket. It's better than a cover drive.
And wasn't it hold the pose as well? Didn't James Bracey just hold the pose? It was a beautiful shot. Presented the full face of the bat, maker's name, held it,
missed the ball.
And missed the ball. We've all been there.
Good performance. I was a little bit disappointed with Neil Wagner in this innings. That wasn't the Neil Wagner we know and love down here, but just wayward and not very in the game. Cole Jameson was a little bit wayward, looked like he might be struggling with his run-up as well. But the one thing, he got 3 for 85 going at 3.26, slightly expensive given the game's circumstances, but it showed his ability to take wickets.
Yeah, and it's always about how you react in cricket, isn't it? And especially in a test match. It is a 5-day test match. It is a 2 innings apiece game. Jameson and Wagner both bowled really well in the second innings. It's just worth saying that as well. So they did struggle. And like we said before, I can't imagine how difficult it must be with these guys playing on perfect fields, perfect wickets, perfectly level playing fields, coming to Lords, the home of cricket, all the pressure that entails, and then running in on these quite ridiculous slopes and trying to get it all right. It's quite bizarre. So this is where the game got really interesting. New Zealand second innings, we lost a day, obviously. We're not going to worry about where that fell, but New Zealand second innings, 169 for 6 declared. They declared at, was it lunch? I forgot where we were
lunch.
Now.
It rained and caused early lunch.
That's it. Took an early lunch and they declared. They really got on with things. It was 52 overs. So, I mean, it wasn't ridiculous pace, was it? But they got on with things towards the end. Ross Taylor came in 33 or 35 balls. Nichols tried to have a bit of a swish. Likewise, de Grandhomme and BJ Watling. If it wasn't for the rain, I think they probably would have batted till lunch and probably hit another 30 runs in no time at all. this was a fantastic bit of captaincy from Kane Williamson. This is what we come to expect from New Zealand. They could have easily gone, now we'll bat till tea, and then the game will just drift away to a draw. But they declared at lunch, setting England 273 to win off a minimum of 75 overs. Minimum. So obviously, if they got the spinner going and they got through their overs, they could have bowled more than that at England. This is what Test cricket for me is all about. This is the intent I want to see from a captain, and it's about trying to win a game of cricket and not lose a game of cricket or draw a game.
It's very much the Kiwi way, mate. Any sport, it's about being a good sort and being competitive. And you saw Brendan McCullum when he took charge of this team. It's all about positive intent. Everything you do is trying to add to that and go forward and trying to win games of cricket. And you look at this. So New Zealand scored 300 in this innings. Kane Williamson, as captain, in 20 Test matches, has scored more than 300 in the first innings. They've won 15, drawn 5, lost none. They know all this stuff. They know how to build pressure. When they've got Trent Boult in the bowling attack, they're a little bit more dangerous. But they've got the ability, like an Anderson and Broad, to roll through a team and create victories. You look at it as a Joe Root. Joe Root's been in this position 26 times, 16 they've won and 6 they've lost. So that shows the mindset of this New Zealand team is all positive. Most of the things they do is positive. You can be positive in defence. You can be positive running between the crease. Positive backing up. Positive doesn't mean Brendan McCullum hitting sixes. It's just attitude, how you play the game.
Yeah. And that's what's marked the end of this Test match, is the big difference between mentality and attitude. Yeah. And like I said, we might fall on different sides of the argument marginally, but this is what I want to see. Yes, New Zealand are arguably the best Test side in the world. India will have a lot to say about that. And if it wasn't for Australia messing around with, was it slow over rate? They might have been playing against India. But New Zealand are arguably probably the best side in world cricket with the Red Bull Arena. So we've set the scene. So that's where we need to be. It's 273 to win. First thing is I expected and I wanted to see was a solid first 15 overs.
Yep.
And when I say solid, I mean solid. I don't mean just pat the ball back to the bowler. And I don't want to break it down of where we were at, but for me, the intent was just not there. Yep. I've got no argument against Joe Root because he's basically come out and said he didn't think with the way the pitch had played, even when the pitch was at its best, you're only probably going about 3 and over. That's fine. I understand where he's coming from. But just show me that you're going to provide a platform to then have a bit of a go. Yep. It wasn't like we was 3 or 4 down after 15 overs. I think we were probably 1 down. I think Rory Burns had gone for 23 overs. So he was 49 for 1 off 23.4 overs. So that is not providing a foundation to have a bit of a go. Literally 10 wickets in the bag. Have a go. The intent for me is timid. It's negative. It was weak-minded, and it just put out to the world that the captain has no faith in some of these players in his lineup, no trust in them, and we're not looking to win games. We're trying to avoid losing games. Yeah. And for me, that doesn't work. I'm probably being a little bit harsh. Now, as we get through the innings, if we're losing wickets or if we're struggling and we're not getting up with the run rate, then fine, drop anchor, bat it back and get the draw. Absolutely no problem with that. But the fact that we didn't try for one moment to win this game of cricket is pretty sickening, to be honest with you. It's really disappointing. And I just don't think I want that intent or that lack of intent for an England Test side. I just think it's sort of back to the bad old days where we just didn't really want to compete too much. Hopefully this is something they'll think about. But also, just before I let you come in and talk to me all about it, Rob, Dom Sibley, it felt to me as if this innings was almost built to get Dom Siblings to keep his place. Yeah. They obviously like him. He's applied himself 60 not out of 207 balls, 312 minutes, 3 fours. It felt like it was a Dom Sibley net and the rest of us were just watching. Yeah. And I'm not sure that's what I want to see. And it felt like Dom Sibley was playing for Dom Sibley a little bit as well. I'm sure he was playing for the team under his instructions of his captain. Yeah. But it just felt a bit too much like I want to keep my spot first. So sorry, rant over. You go in. I've got a few more bits to add later, but get stuck into it, Rob.
Well, I'm going to throw some credit on on some of the players. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I
Mm.
thought New Zealand bowled really well in periods. I thought the seamers were really good, and England played well enough not to get out in those periods. They played and missed a lot, sure, but New Zealand bowled all right. They gave themselves an opportunity to try and win the game. And to be fair, with 2 sessions left in the game, all 3 results are on the table. So from a viewer's point of view, and I think that does come into Kane Williamson and Gary Stead's thinking, from a viewer's point of view, who wants to sit and watch us bat for another 4 hours and end up 8 down, and no one wants to see that. Sibley was solid, gritty.
Yeah.
Maybe
don't Elgar him.
I shouldn't Elgar him, but it still wasn't easy to watch. It's still someone that isn't playing very well. It's just someone which we need to give him credit for, is a whole shitload of piss and vinegar and hard work trying to just make it work. Doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to get across the line. And I quite liked that about him. Zach Crawley getting out driving with no feet and hard hands is just... He averages 20, mate. 20 in Test cricket if you take out that 267. There's huge issues. He is not a number 3. Never. Not in a million years is he a number 3. He should be batting around the same time that Dan Lawrence is trying to bat in this order. 100%.
Wow, okay.
I'm making big statements. I'm making big plays.
You go for it.
Ollie Pope looked good. I thought Ollie Pope, he didn't score huge, but in the first innings, I thought he looks like a different cricketer. He's got his positive intent back. And again, in the second inning, positive in intent. Yeah, he's shifted across to try and stop edging it, and he's getting LBW, but somewhere in the middle, he's going to find out what works for him. He's trying to work it out, but he looked like a Test cricketer while he was at the crease trying to make it work. I'm going to sit the other side of the fence on this. I don't believe that this England team would have won this Test if they went for it. And there's a huge question mark about whether they could have stopped the rot if it started because of having a Dan Lawrence and a James Bracey 6 and 7. It's not saying they're not good enough. It's saying they've not really played a lot and they've just got absolutely nothing, playing horrendously. So I think England take huge pride in their home record in not losing Test matches and winning Test series. If they got out all guns blazing to try and make this work and it backfired, alongside the PR disaster that's going on, alongside trying to keep their record, it's a 2 Test match series. If they win this second Test match, no one remembers this. All they remember is England won the series. So I'm going to take a different approach and go, with this lineup, I would have told them to do the same and shoot me down for it, but they just wouldn't have won.
Okay, so if Butler's in, keeper batsman's in, and if Ben Stokes is in, I understand that. But Dan Lawrence has still played Test match cricket. Pope has played pretty well. He still played Test match cricket. Zach Crawley hit 267 last summer. James Bracey was probably going to bat at 3 in this side before injury to Folkes. They're not sort of, absolute unknown quantities. Only Bracey was making his debut in that batting lineup. There's a tweet here. Andy Zaltzman, ex-comedian, he does a lot of the stat work on the cricket. There was 33 scoring shots in the first 42 overs. 33. That isn't, or aggressive scoring shots. I can't remember exactly what he said, but that isn't that's past being defensive.
That is.
You could have accidentally played more attacking shots than that if you'd have blindfolded some of these batsmen. In the end, even with that, we only needed 140 off 20 overs, 7 and over. All it would have took was a little bit more accumulation. And I'm not talking about trying to smash the ball into the nursery ground or, up to St. John's Wood Station or whatever. All it would have taken was a little bit more accumulation. I'm talking about dropping and running, perhaps. You've got all those slips in. There's not that many men in front, but then, they were ringing late. There's opportunities to score the odd run here and there, the odd 2 here and there, the odd single here and there. And we might have only needed 5.5 and over for the last 20 overs. Yes, it was still a good chase, but we had players that could go after that score. And it may have actually, a captain showing confidence in some of these younger players, it may have actually made them go and play differently. Zach Crawley has obviously struggled in this Test match, but perhaps if we're not going out dropping anchor, 2 off 25 balls, that shows you his mentality. He's tried not to get out. And then in the end, he's got himself out, obviously. Damn, failed. But maybe if we're saying, actually, we're going to try and play our natural games and we're going to try and score runs without taking too many risks, but we've got our areas. It's a bit like, was it Ricky Ponting back in the day or someone, or one of the Wall brothers, right, in certain situations, get rid of crossback shots. I'm not playing crossback shots. Pick what will work for you and go with it. Don't take too many risks, but play the percentages. And maybe if we'd scored a few more runs in that first 40 odd overs, we might have only needed 5 and over finish in 20 overs. And maybe then, we could have given ourselves a chance to at least have a look to go for it. And it's just about having faith in your lineup. If you've not got trust in your lineup, then you need to go back to the drawing board. And regardless of who's fit and available to come back in, you need to turn around to people like Dan Lawrence and Zach Crawley and say, you're not with us for a while. Because this setup, this coaching, this captaincy has shown zero faith in some of those young players. James Bracey, he should have batted 3, and we're saying we haven't got any faith in him after 1 innings of cricket. So, that's my take on it. I don't want to be too harsh on it because in the end, it was exactly right. We dropped anchor at the end and made sure we didn't lose the game. But all I'm asking for is maybe for 15 overs or so after the start to have a bit of a go. That's all I was asking. Yeah. And that's what really disappoints me.
I can see that. You're 30 odd for none after 15 overs and shine's gone a little bit. Give it a bit of a crack.
But not even that. You don't even have to give it a bit of a crack, in my opinion. I just think you just needed to accumulate better and look to be a little bit more positive. And a little bit more positive is not much in the way they did play.
Where does the order come from? It's not Joe Root's decision. Let's be honest, Joe. It's a joint decision at a guess between
with Silverwood,
who places a lot of faith in his coaches.
And sure, Thorpe's got a say in there somewhere,
and the captain and the bowling coach will be in there as well because they'll be assessing what he thinks bowlers can get out of it. And it's obviously a joint decision. And now the question is we've lost in India. We were terrible. We just keep losing games of cricket. We've got to stop losing games of cricket. I'm not saying that's what they said, but that's maybe what they've done and gone, you know what? If we draw 0-0 against New Zealand in 2 test matches or going to play in the World Test Championship final, that's a really good performance with this squad. And I keep coming back to let's give ourselves an opportunity to win the series. Yes, they could have gone out and shown some intent here. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done. But at the same time, I'm not going to lambast them the way Twitter has and the negativity. I think it's always there for the taking when someone doesn't go to try and win a game. And I'm not a defensive-minded person, but I do worry about a couple of these guys in this lineup. Yeah. Crawley, I'm coming back to again, mate. I just from what I saw in India, minus a 50 in one of the tests. After that 267, I think he's only scored 150 and he's passed double figures a handful of occasions. He averages 56 in the first innings of a test match, and that's because he scored that 267. And I'm talking the first innings as in we've won the toss and we're batting.
Yeah.
Anything else, batting second in the game averages 14, third in the game 23, fourth innings of a game 7.6.
Yikes.
It's not my number 3.
He's in a difficult spot. I mean, again, we'll talk about what we think might happen. You've got to make decisions. Like I say, if a captain doesn't have faith in their batting lineup, then you have to make changes. It's as simple as that. And this is my issue. I'm not trying to be too overly, hypercritical of Joe Root and the decision they made. I'm just saying, with the decision they made, it shows to me that there are fundamental issues. Zach Crawley, I really like Zach Crawley. He looked a very, very elegant player. I would have liked to have seen him open the batting. But at the minute, for whatever happened for this test match, it's just not there. Dan Lawrence showed the bad side of Dan Lawrence. There are big question marks. Dom Sibley, I'm sorry, this 60 runs, it shows grit, it shows determination. But as a batsman, I'm not talking about how he looked, but technically he is not getting in the right position. He's not got his head in the right position sometimes when the ball's. He loves playing on side. He can barely play a shot on the offside. I'm not saying I want to see him drive like Ian Bell all day, but there are real fundamental issues. And if all we want out of an opener is just somebody to just try and stay there for the innings, then I'm not in. I need to see something else. And there is the potential opportunity here when you look at the squad to say to Zach Crawley, okay, look, it's been a bit of a tough time here. Just go and take a seat. Hasib Hamid, you've come along, you've done well. You were a late call up, but let's get you in at 3.
Yeah.
Perhaps, I know he's an opener, but I just wonder if there's an opportunity to just give him a test match just to see how he takes to it. You never know, do you? And then that also puts pressure on Sibley as well, because Sibley for me isn't a long-term answer at the moment. It doesn't look like he is anyway. I might be proven wrong, and I'd like to be proven wrong. But I just wonder if that might be a way they go to actually further solidify that top three before Root has to come out to bat. And you have a man in the squad that could potentially fill that role, even though it is slightly out of position for him. Yeah. But look, let's not take too much away from this test match. It was great to have it back. It was great to see the crowd back in at Lord's. My only other bugbear of this test match is I'm sick and tired of seeing these people popping champagne corks onto the outfield. Don't know why that niggles me so much, but it's just littering, Rob.
It is littering, and
it's disrespecting the home of cricket on the field of cricket. You don't just chuck a fag butt or a packet of crisps on the outfield, do you? So what difference does it make if it's a Moët Chandon of our available cork onto the outfield?
You wouldn't do it anywhere, mate. You wouldn't go to a football game and think, "Oh, my top from a Carlsberg bottle of beer, I'm going to chuck onto the table."
Exactly.
Who takes champagne to a football game anyway? So
Rochdale fans probably.
Wow. I don't like it. No sport in the world would you litter the pitch that they're playing on and be allowed to stay in the ground.
Exactly. The arrogance of it. Just get a grip, get a life.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I'm not in for that one at all. And someone's got to go and pick it up. And if someone has to go and pick up something that you chucked on the floor, you're an idiot. Simple as that. Don't care if it's a carver cork.
The hammer's come down.
Out. Get out.
It's like room 101. It's called the Rich's Idiot Room. Boom, gone. Champagne cork.
One of the first things to go in there would be people that pop the cork onto the outfield. It's Lord's. It's the home of cricket.
Yeah.
Christ alive, people.
So the draw, going back to the draw.
Yes. The draw.
You've made your point clear. I've made my point clear. I take it the papers in England are very much along the lines of, what the hell is this? Why have you done this?
I think the issue that most people have got is there wasn't a little bit of intent.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? The fact that there was no intent shown whatsoever. I can't say I've swept along the tabloids and the big the big pages, whatever they are, and had a real temperature check. I would guess that that's where we are. I mean, looking at a few comments last night, I think it was that. It's like, okay, fine. You make a really good point though. Edgbaston, if we win that test match, forget about it. Nothing else will be spoken about in this test apart from probably Ollie Robinson, who we're going to get onto in a moment. And that's great. And also, if you think about it, before this, we were talking about our predictions. I said that New Zealand will win this test match. Teams always get themselves up at the home of cricket, as we spoke about, and win games of cricket at Lord's. That's where they really, really want to get that win. So we're ahead of the game here. So I said it was going to be 1-1. New Zealand win at Lord's, we win at Edgbaston. So if we follow that prediction, we win this series and it's all good, and I will take it all back. But I'm not going to go back into it. My take on it. So, I think it's just going to be a little bit of disappointment. But let's get on to the next test match, and I'm sure people will forget it very, very quickly, and we'll be ready to watch another 5 days of cricket and see some positive England cricket, hopefully.
Next test match starts this week. We're recording. It starts this week. One player that will not be playing, suspended by the ECB and all formats, Ollie Robinson. Where do we start?
Okay. Well, very good point. First and foremost, I'm not going to sit here and read out statements. He made a statement. ECB made a statement. ECB's made another statement. ECB basically put one out last night at the close of play, which I think was the right thing to do. I've seen some pushback over that, trying to say they were sneaking it out, but I'm not quite sure when they would have put a statement out. In between a drinks break, perhaps.
Yeah, no,
while someone was taking guard. Yeah, exactly. So ECB obviously have confirmed that he is suspended. He won't play any part in the second test, and he has been basically sent packing back to Sussex. That's it. He's out of the squad. I think, without jumping into your point too much, I think you have to. If somebody is under investigation, they cannot be around the setup. It's the same as work, isn't it? If someone's 100%. Allegated something, you're out. Go home until we work this thing out. Ollie Robinson, first thing, right, 7 wickets in the game, 42 runs, exceptional performance. First point I want to make, I refuse to accept and I refuse to listen to people who treat him like a victim. Oh, he did really well, but all this was going on. Didn't he play well because all this was going on? No, I don't give a flying, you know what about that.
Yeah.
He did these things. I don't care how long ago it was, and I don't care how old he was. He did it. So let's not treat him as if he's a victim in any of this. Yeah. Yes, it's not ideal that on the night of a test match or the day of a test match, someone's trawled through his Twitter and found it, but he put them in his Twitter.
Yes. Yep.
Initially. And it wasn't one. It wasn't a vague one. It was some really quite, pathetic stuff, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the fact in his statement, he accepted that they were racist and sexist tweets. Yep. He accepts what they were. He wasn't trying to dance around that. So first things first, he's not a victim in this. All right, let's get that clear. That's my opinion. Secondly, age. He was 18. He was only 18. It was 9 years ago. I've seen that a lot. I accept that to a point, but it's all depends on how he is now as a person. But also, just quickly, where was he at the time? I don't want to throw accusations at Yorkshire, but we believe he was at Yorkshire around that sort of time. Like I saw someone on Twitter saying, I apologize, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but what was the air he was breathing at the time? Yeah. We know there are serious issues within Yorkshire. Azim Rafiq has come out and spoke about these issues, and it's still not being investigated properly. Yorkshire are really letting the side die. And, it might not be just Yorkshire, so let's not be too harsh there just yet. But where was he? Why was this acceptable? Why wasn't there someone in his ear? Surely somebody around that time, whether it was management, whether it was an agent, whether it was his family, whether it's friends, teammates, somebody would have been going, mate, why are you saying all that? And he's not just tweeting that, he's saying that out loud. He's talking to people in that manner as well. It's not just for clout, it's not just for banter. That's him, that's who he was.
Yeah.
If he is now a changed person, as we believe he is, he was sacked by Yorkshire, he moved on to Sussex, he's become a changed person, then let's treat him and punish him as a changed person. Let's make him take the best from that and become even better, become a vocal, critic of racism, be anti-racist. It's not good enough to just be, I'm not racist. You should be anti-racist.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I fall on this. I'm really struggling with it, but yes, there are some mitigating factors with his age, etc. But it was clear that around that time, he must have been in an environment where it seemed to be acceptable. And that worries me greatly. And that's why ECB does need to look into this. And ECB need to be better anyway. They're not addressing this issue in cricket at all. And Ollie Robinson, I personally hope it's not the most awful punishment in the world. I think get him out of this test match, give him a severe reprimand, get him educated, get him being vocal, and then he's back up for selection by India. I don't think he'll be involved anyway. But yeah, that's my take at the moment, Rob. So sorry for holding the floor for too long. But yeah,
no, it's a pretty valid and reasonable approach to how to deal with it. I've got a couple of points to add. One, I can't speak for everyone. Not many people are the same people they were when they were a teenager as they are when they're 27 to 40 to 50 or whatever. Life changes, people change.
We change.
They go through growth, understanding, and all these different things through life. That's what the ECB should be investigating, going, okay, he's admitted to these things in the context that they are seen as. He's admitted to that's what they are.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that now? What sort of person are you now? And if there's growth, if there's change, then you can be, okay, so this is what's gone on. And like a lot of things in life, it's about education and understanding is the way forward, not just punishment. It's about understanding what you're saying and what the impacts are of those words. From a punishment point of view, what I would like to see, and I saw George Dobell tweet about this, I don't want to see a fine. I don't want to see a fine. That means absolutely freaking nothing to anyone fining someone.
Absolutely. It's another sponsorship deal, isn't it? That's all it is, a fine. Yeah.
I don't want to see him banned from Test cricket for a year. That, again, doesn't really address the elephant in the room. I'd like to see him put forward for, some learning, being able to work with other people who may need that learning as well. I'm not talking so much community service, but it's more... like you said, becoming some sort of ambassador about change, growth, and helping cricket as a whole, whatever level, whether it's grassroots, whether it's county cricket, just being something that's responsible.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's where it needs to lie, doesn't it? I mean, get him into other county dressing rooms, get him going into second 11 dressing rooms, get him into under 19s, under 18 dressing rooms. This is what I did when I was a kid. as people are calling him. It's amazing how 18-year-olds become kids when you want them to be, but they can go and fight in wars and whatever at the same age.
Yeah.
But it's go out there and say, I made this mistake. Don't be like me. This is what I thought at the time. It is wrong. I share dressing rooms. He plays for Sussex. Yeah, it's not 11 white guys at Sussex. It's not, he obviously has women in his life. It's his mum, his sister, or whatever it might be, partner, girlfriend, whatever. He has women in his life. So these attitudes are just not acceptable.
Yeah.
In this dressing room as well, Hasib Hamid's in there. It might be the first time he shared a dressing room with Ollie Robinson. I might be wrong. He's suddenly going, oh, hang on a sec, man.
Yeah.
Didn't know this was you. He doesn't know him that well, maybe. So it really does undermine trust, doesn't it? And one thing that ECB were big on and still are is trust. They still don't trust Alex Hales 3 or 4 years after the events what he did. I hope they don't go down the same route where they hammer Robinson like they've hammered Alex Hales. He's been punished every game now on a game-to-game basis because how long that's gone on. And I hope they don't do the same for Robinson, but he has to have proved that he is a different person.
Yeah.
And he has to pay something. We can't just dismiss it because of age and years ago. Where do you draw the line? If somebody committed any offence 9 years ago when there was 18 and it's only just coming to light, you can't just wipe it under the, brush it under the carpet.
No.
There has to be something. And it's not like it's a really inconsequential thing. So let's all listen. We're white men. Let's listen to other people and their take on this, and let's accept their take on it. It's not our place to dictate whether this was offensive or whether we should ignore it or not. And I just hope the ECB are sensible, and I hope they don't use him as an example to try and get themselves out of how badly they're handling other situations. John Holder, umpire, etc., which I'm not going to go into now, but read up on it if you want. I just worry that they're going to bring the hammer down, as you said a minute ago, to try and prove what a great organisation they are, and that's not the way to do it.
Very dangerous territory. And their PR team, the ECB's PR team, will be working day and night on this, working what the hell do we do? Because our backs are against the wall. We're sending people out onto the pitch wearing black T-shirts and everything in the world, and
anti-discrimination campaign. Sorry, one of the best things I heard. I just got to jump in. You've just reminded me. Anti-discrimination campaign. In the morning of this test match, they all wore a T-shirt that had something on it, whether it's anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-transphobia, whatever. It's ridiculous. Someone said, I think he ticked off about 3 or 4 of those T-shirts in those tweets. It's like, come on, man. And it is in the light that what they're trying to do. Again, I just wonder if they go, this doesn't play well, the optics are bad, we're going to be harsher. Talking about the PR team working overtime, Rob, Ollie Robinson's not playing in this test match. Before we go into what we're going to talk about, Craig Overton, does he get the call up? And if he does... This is the box of worms. Box of worms, is that right, Tim? I feel like I might have mixed metaphors.
It can be a box of worms. It can be a box of anything, but it's a box of not much good.
Oh my word! Craig Overton. Before this squad was announced, we were absolutely Craig Overton has to be in this side. This is test set up, and he has to probably play. I didn't realise I'd missed this completely, but about 5 years ago, was it 2015? Around that time, he basically told a Pakistani-born English player for Sussex to F off back to his own country. And he's never accepted that. Allegedly. But he never accepted that he has said that, even though umpire Alex Worth and non-striking batsman Michael Yardy, him of ex-England fame, both allegedly heard what he said and reported that. He didn't get a ban for a racism offence. He got a ban for basically abuse, a level 1. I think he had a 2-match ban. Which at the time was absolutely lambasted and criticised as pathetic, really, as was done. Overton's never accepted he said that. Yeah. So maybe we can work the mental gymnastics and he meant it in a different way, or he said something slightly different that wasn't intended that way. But we're going to see Ollie Robinson dropped from this team, and there is a good chance Craig Overton could be the man to replace him, or at least replace one of those spots. I just wonder if it's just too much trouble now. And I don't know if Overton actually plays in this next game.
I don't know, mate. Do you think the PR team, there are companies that you can hire that
they're busy.
People's social media and delete things out of the internet and put good stories out about people so it bumps down the bad stuff? 100%. Why? I know we're going round horses here. Going round horses is a brand new
mixed metaphors.
Mixed metaphor that's just been created. We're going round horses, but Mate, if we're doing anything tonight, we're setting up a new business that does that, because every county in the country, every player in international sport is currently trying to work out someone who can delete half of their stuff from when they were new to social media when they were a teenager, mate. There'll be a whole market, and they must be throwing kittens. Anyone that Chris Silverwood thinks about picking from now forward will go through the PR team before they even do it. There'll be like a 6-week lead time for a call-up.
Get the security guys on it. Dig in that background, lads. Come on, do a better job. It's crazy, isn't it? So, but I think we've kind of covered all that, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Overton and whether or not how much the press pick this up, because it's kind of hypocritical, isn't it? In some respects, if you're kicking a guy out of a squad for what he's said and done years ago, but another guy who arguably, questionably, has done something as well, that you give him a go. I don't think they will. I think the changes that will be made. I think Leach comes in for Robinson. Got
to be a spinner.
And I think Stones will come in for Wood.
Yep.
Do you see any further change? I suppose the only other change with the bowling would be, unless I'm forgetting somebody, would be Overton in for perhaps Broad or Anderson.
Yeah, they might be pushed into a corner to play Broad and Anderson in this. They might have had ideas around resting them, but I think Broad and Anderson, Leach, you've got to play a spinner at Edgbaston, so Leach is coming in. Robinson out. I do wonder whether they'd want to just have a little nibble at looking at Ollie Stone and Mark Wood together.
Okay, interesting.
Pace to me felt like a big difference in this test. Now, that does run the risk on Mark Wood, who is injury-prone, playing back-to-back tests. Maybe that's already assessed in their medical team, and they say never happens, needs time off in between test matches. Because he did do a decent workload. If that's the case, it will be Overton at 8, and it will be Ollie Stone coming in for Mark Wood and Anderson and Broad going again.
Yeah. It depends if they want to get the spinner in, doesn't it, really? If they think that Edgbaston warrants the spinner. It's really fun, isn't it? Because county cricket this year, we've seen spinners have massive success.
Yep.
A lot of spinners playing really, really good cricket. You could have another 2 or 3 of these young fellas in the squad, and it wouldn't have surprised, whether it was a Mar Verde, Jack Carson, or Matt Parkinson. They could be in there. But we're not playing one at the moment. It's quite funny, really, quite interesting. I think Stones is definitely in, playing at his home ground. Edgbaston, give him another go. He's fit again. I would like to see one of Broad and Anderson rested, ideally, and Overton come in. But obviously now this has come back to light. I wonder if they'll actually be brave enough or sensible enough, whatever the right word is, to actually put him back in the team. What about the batting, Rob? Do you see any changes? Do you think they'll give one test too many rather than one test too few? At the moment for the likes of Lawrence and Crawley?
I don't think...
I know what you would do with Crawley at the minute. It's like fire him into the sun.
he's a little bit low on the radar. If we did a power rankings, mate... he's
I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed.
My gut tells me that England are not going to change this batting lineup.
Yeah.
They're not going to change the batting lineup. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I don't think they will either. They like Crawley. They're going to give him time. They're going to give him more experience against a decent bowling attack and just keep building those blocks. Batting lineup isn't going to change. Overton in for Robinson, Stone in for Wood.
Yeah. What about for New Zealand then? Ajaz Patel in for Santner?
I think you've got to. There is talk of New Zealand maybe even playing 2 spinners at some point during this tour, whether at Edgbaston or Southampton. And I'm not. I don't really like it that much with this lineup. I think just quickly, on that then, if they did play 2 spinners, would it be de Grandhomme that misses out? Because Santner could probably bump up one, couldn't he? It's got to be. You've got to go with your main choice seamers, and de Grandhomme is the seamer that misses out.
Yeah, so that would balance nicely, wouldn't it? Because what would it be? Watling at 6? Would that be right?
Watling at 6, Santner 7, which is too high, to be honest. For him, he is an 8, but he's a good 8.
But then you've got Jamieson and Southee that can still bat well in that tail.
Southee so. Jamieson
maybe not so much. Sorry,
a little bit more like it. But the big one is whether Trent Boult plays in this second test. They've got him over. He's come out of quarantine 4 days early thanks to the UK lifting restrictions. Cheers, Boris. And
that's the last time anyone will say cheers, Boris, on this podcast. No, not again, Rob. No more.
My boy. Don't do it.
Gotta go.
So it's interesting whether they want to get Boult. And the reason for giving Boult game time is He's been brilliant against India in home series. They're going to play him in that World Test Championship final. Is he ready to take serious live reps on the field, bowl overs, maybe 30, 40 overs? Is he ready to do that? Does he need that before the India test? If the answer to any of those is yes, then he's got to come into this lineup. Got to. And I'm not quite sure how you fiddle it around. Someone has got to miss out. Whether it's de Grandhomme misses out, everyone kind of bumps up one. Ajaz Patel comes in for Santner. It's too long a tail. So looking at it, they're either going to rest, I can't believe I'm saying this, Southee for Bolt and just give people game time, or it's a toss-up between Wagner and Jameson on who they want to have. And I think they'll want to give Jameson the game time because they see him as a complete difference maker. And although Wagner does so many things well, terrible in the first innings, second innings, bowled like a dream. He was great. Scored runs down the order, all heart cricket. It's a really difficult position to be in, but rest assured that top six is not going to change. They're happy.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Trent Boult, I think it all comes down to him. He's an experienced guy. He's had a white ball in his hand at the IPL. He's probably had a bit of net time, hasn't he, with a red ball? So does he feel good enough? And it's not about this England Test match. It's about the World Test Championship coming up after this second Test match against England. Sorry, the World Test Championship, obviously against India. If he's ready, if he says, you know what, I'm good, I'm cooked, I'm ready to go. Just put my feet up for this next Test match, and I'm ready for India. I know my skills. He doesn't need to spend too much time with a red ball in his hand to know what's going on. So he doesn't necessarily need to play. But if he wants to play, he plays. As simple as that. And I'm with you. I think Wagner misses out. Unless they want to rest Southee. That's the only time it would be somebody else.
That's what I kind of meant from that comment, going, do they rest him?
Definitely.
Again, the statistics of these guys these have been the best trio of bowlers New Zealand have ever had at the same time. The last 5 years, Wagner 148 wickets at 23, Southee 143 at 23, Bolt 134 at 26. That as a trio is an absolute dream. And Cricinfo put out some stats a couple of years ago about it being one of the top 5 trios in world cricket for a seamers ever. So it's a huge call to make changes, but changes occur either when it's time for a change or someone else is making things better and providing a different option. And Kyle Jameson is providing a very difficult option. Anytime he's bowling straight at someone, no one wants to deal with the height of the bounce of the ball.
Yeah, no, big time. Yeah, he was impressive. It was good to see, and it'd be interesting to see if he can keep that going, and also if he can keep it going with a bat. Obviously, averaging about 50 odd coming into this first Test match, wasn't he? So whether sometimes people have inflated averages early doors, but let's see if he can become that 8-9 type player. So I think that pretty much wraps us up, Rob. We've gone obviously way longer on a Test match review than we would have done, but there was so much to talk about. Great to see the different opinions as well on one or two things, I reckon. And let's look forward to the next Test match. Hopefully we can have it without the nonsense, without there's something that's appeared from nowhere. James Bracey, get your Twitter tidied up, mate. Just in case. Not saying there's anything there, but just make sure. I shouldn't joke. But it's been a weird week, mate, but it's been great to see international Test match cricket back in England. It's been great to watch. And we need to get caught up with some county cricket as well. County cricket has got to the point now where it's having a break before the Vitality T20 Blast hits the screens. So we're going to try and get all over all of that at some point very, very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, we sure will, mate. Happy days. Well, roll on the second Test. It was so good, I've got to say, to lay in bed 10 o'clock at night. Test match starting day one. I was so excited, mate. It's
awesome.
And then when I wake up in the morning, I've got it on while I'm working. I'm just kind of yeah, wicket time. Not telling you who I was cheering for.
Back in the winner, eh? You can't back a loser at the minute, can you?
No, I can't. It's good time to be alive, mate. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, guys. If you enjoyed it, huge thumbs up, subscribe. Make sure you click whichever subscribe button to whichever platform you are listening to us on. You can check us out on Twitter at Leading Edge Pod. Rich, thank you very much for your time, my friend. We'll see you all next time.
Yep.